Welcome to Between the Lines of Scripture, where we look deeper into the stories of the Bible, finding the hidden meanings, the human emotions, and the divine truth between the lines. I'm your host, Dennis Cole, and today we're going to look between the lines of Scripture to study where Jesus heals 10 men with leprosy. So let's go ahead and step into the story. Jesus is traveling along the border between Samaria and Galilee, heading toward Jerusalem and the cross. Along the way, 10 men approach him, but not too close. Now, why is that? Because the men are lepers. To be a leper in those days was to be proclaimed ceremonially unclean. You're required to live outside the village, disconnected from family, work, worship, everything that gave life meaning. They stood at a distance and shouted, the scripture says. It's almost like the ancient version of social distancing. Remember when we were told to stay 6 feet apart during the COVID pandemic? Lepers in Jesus' time had to stay 50 yards away. If they were upwind, that's half a football field. You talk about isolation, separation, loneliness. So there they are, 10 men, keeping their distance, yet united by their suffering, calling out, Jesus, Master, have pity on us. Now notice something fascinating. Jesus doesn't touch them. He doesn't even seem to move closer. Instead, he gives a command. Go, show yourselves to the priests. The priests were the only ones who could declare someone clean, socially and ceremonially restored. Jesus doesn't say, you're healed. He gives them a direction. And as they obey, something miraculous happens. Scripture tells us, as they went, they were cleansed. The healing happens in motion, in faith-filled obedience. Sometimes God's work in our lives waits for our first steps. The miracle isn't just in his command, but in our willingness to trust and to act. But now comes the twist. 10 were healed, but only one comes back. Just one. He sees his skin restored, his body whole. He now could rejoin his family, be a husband and a father again, become productive, allowed to worship in a synagogue. So instead of rushing off to reclaim his life, he stops. He turns around, praising God in a loud voice, just as loudly as he had cried for mercy minutes before, and he throws himself at Jesus' feet to thank him. Scripture tells us he was a Samaritan. That detail would have shocked Jesus' listeners. Jews and Samaritans had centuries of bad blood between them, stretching all the way back to the exile years. The Samaritans had intermarried with Gentiles, and the Jews of the southern kingdom considered them impure. Even when the Samaritans offered to help rebuild Jerusalem's walls later, they were turned away, and that division lasted for generations. And yet, it's a Samaritan, not a Jew, who returns to thank the Jewish Messiah. Then Jesus asks, were not all 10 cleansed? Where are the other 9? And that question still echoes today. Where are the other 9? 10 men healed, only one expressed gratitude. 9 received mercy and moved on with their lives, back to family, to work, to joy, but never back to Jesus. And then Jesus says something so powerful to the thankful Samaritan, rise and go, your faith has made you well. The Greek here literally means your faith has saved you. All 10 were physically healed, but only one experienced true spiritual salvation. There's a subtle warning here and a deep encouragement. It's easy to cry out to God in times of suffering, but do we return with gratitude once the healing comes? The leper's story reminds us that gratitude completes faith. 9 received a blessing, 1 built a relationship. 9 were cleansed on the outside, 1 was transformed on the inside. Gratitude is more than a passing feeling. It's a posture of the heart. Like that one man who turned back, gratitude draws us closer to Jesus. It turns a blessing into a relationship and an answered prayer into a conversation that never ends. Each day gives us a choice to rush ahead into the restored parts of our lives or to pause, turn around, and give thanks. Gratitude slows us down just enough to see that every healing, every breath, every moment of grace is a reason to worship. Maybe today there's something God has already done in your life that deserves a thank you. Don't miss the chance to say it out loud, perhaps right now, because in that moment, like the Samaritan, we find not only wholeness, but salvation. Thank you for joining me today on Between the Lines of Scripture. If this message touched your heart, share with someone who might need a reminder that gratitude brings us closer to God. Until next time, this is Dennis Cole encouraging you to keep reading Between the Lines of Scripture, because that's where faith, hope, and love are often waiting to be found. Be blessed in all that you do.